we're trying to think through what are the implications of the Ukraine crisis for the Eastern Partnership. And we feel that the response that has been presented by the EU so far, the adjustment to the EU's neighborhood policies, Eastern Partnership, as we can see from the conclusions of the Riga summit, and as is clear from the ongoing process of the ENP review, there are a number of elements of this adjustment strategy. Most importantly, obviously, is differentiation between countries which have signed an association and DCFTA agreements, on the one hand, like Ukraine has done, like Moldova and Georgia, and between the rest of the Eastern Partnership countries, like Belarus, Azerbaijan, and Armenia, which have not, and with whom the EU will pursue various and variable and flexible relations based largely on interests. That brings me to the second element of adjustment, which is to focus more on the EU's and the partners' interests rather than on the sort of overarching values and zone of shared values as a basis for policy. That's another shift that we see as a result of the conflict. Then there is a greater emphasis on security, which is again obvious. A greater emphasis on geopolitical profiling of the Eastern Partnership, which may include provision of security assistance to the Eastern partners, closer interlink with the CSDP, CSFP. So these are some of the elements of the adjustment of the Eastern Partnership to the crisis. Some of them are sensible, but obviously we would think that it still falls short of what the proper response of the EU should be. The EU shouldn't become more pragmatic in its Eastern policy as a result of the crisis. Rather, it should recommit to the values and to the promise that it made implicitly, and state that promise explicitly, which obviously is granting some sort of a membership perspective, however distant, to some of the countries, especially Ukraine, which have gone the furthest and which have the ambition. And even if that's not possible, politically, because of various reasons, it should not close that option. And we feel that by making the Eastern Partnership more about security, more about making it more of a classical foreign policy, which is the direction that the Eastern Partnership seems to be heading, I think that kind of dilutes this promise, at least discursively, or at least from the feel of it. The other thing that we think that the Eastern Neighborhood or the Eastern Partnership should be doing in response to the conflict or as a consequence of the conflict should be to think of formats, of modalities of how to decrease that competitiveness and that rivalry between the various integration projects in that neighborhood. That means between the EU's own Eastern Partnership and the Eurasian Economic Union. Although we obviously understand that it's difficult to talk now about some sort of rapprochement or anything with Russia because of its actions. But still, going forward, there needs to be some modality of points of overlap that the two organizations can, at least two integration projects can at least coexist and not be perhaps mutually exclusive in terms of their membership. So I think that's another direction which the Eastern Partnership or the EU should think about in the future. So these two elements, solidarity and restatement of its commitment and promise, political, to the partners, namely Ukraine, but also others, and trying to find ways of ending the zero-sum conflict in the Eastern Neighborhood between the EU, the Eastern Partnership, on the one hand, and Russia and its integration project.